Yourselves.
Hello there.
I am the very model of a modern Major General.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the evil, oppressive, Christian, theocratic world domination conspiracy live stream, in which we are going to plot the overthrow of society and its replacement of all present atheistic governments with an evil, oppressive Christian theocracy, which will round up all of the atheists and put them into camps where they will be subjected to 24-hour Kinham Bible indoctrination with optional electroshock therapy, depending on if budget permits. So, with me today, my fellow conspirators in achieving this goal, I have my friend Fritz Imperial.
Yo.
And some new people, Ghost of Buckley.
Hello there, everyone.
He has the coolest name ever.
Thank you.
If I wasn't using my real name, I would totally have probably gone with that, because that's pretty awesome. The only question is, are you the real William F. Buckley?
Only the CIA knows.
Okay, only the CIA knows for sure. And lastly, Anarcho Rain, which was some guy in the chat.
Evening.
You've been at a bunch of our streams, haven't you?
Yeah, I show up every now and then.
Oh, right. Okay. I guess I forgot. It's hard to keep track of everyone. There's so many people. Except today there's just 4. Which is probably because, Christmas and people working. And we might have more people show up later.
And I was playing Dark Souls.
Yeah, Fritz was playing Dark Souls. And I'm going to try and keep an eye on the chat. I'm going to see pop out chat. So here we go. I will say, please let us know if you can hear us and all of that good stuff. So I just want to check that we are in fact live. We should be. Okay, and as always, I think the first thing that we ought to do on this show is talk about our recent videos, those of us who have videos. So, Fritz, what was your most... Have you done a video since the last one?
What was the one I was doing last?
2 weeks ago was the last.
Yeah, I put out about a video about it once a week. Well, I just put out my most recent video, which was a description and explanation of what an evangelical Christian is, and I think that went over pretty well. People asked me if I was a young Earth creationist, showing that the stereotypes still exist. But what I will do tomorrow will be a short, very fun, simple response video to a guy by the name of Thulian Perspective, an alt-right YouTuber who made a very humorous video a couple weeks ago aimed at Christians and Muslims and asserting that pre-Christian Europe was a scientifically advanced paradise, and that the Christians came in and ruined everything. Clearly, and I basically left in the comments saying, "Dear sir, I happen to have a degree in history, and I can say that you are a expletive idiot."
Oh wow, yeah, yeah. I think I saw that one, and
the neo-pagans really, well, honestly, I would much rather have to face them than either Islam or atheism, because they're at least kind of funny, and it's since the last time that Christianity went up against old European paganism, it didn't really end well for the pagans.
Yes, I mean, if these neo-pagans were actually like the old pagans, then that would be good news for Christianity, because Christianity has proven itself very capable of converting pagans.
Mm-hmm.
It's
by word or by sword.
It's the left-wing atheists we have problems with,
and Islam.
And Islam, yes.
I think with Islam, it's because it's similar enough to Christianity in the sense that it's a monotheistic Abrahamic religion, but it's different enough that it's distinct. It's not. It wouldn't be able to be swayed into Christianity, a lot like how some people view the Latter-day Saints.
Or how is that?
I'm saying the reason. I think one of the reasons.
You mean they can't be grouped in? There's no way you can have a Muslim or Islam be grouped as part of Christianity.
Yeah, it's far enough away from that where, the Latter-day Saints are generally considered to be, well, I wouldn't consider you're part of the Latter-day Saints, but the Utah ones.
Oh, yeah. People argue back and forth about whether Latter-day Saints are Christians.
But my
not.
Point is that it's far enough away that it's distinguished itself from Christianity.
There's no serious argument that Muslims are Christians.
No.
You might argue whether Mormons are Christians or not, but
yeah.
There's no serious argument that Muslims are Christians. They're clearly
Although
not.
Apparently they argue that everybody's a Muslim. Everyone is born Muslim. They just don't know it yet. And that basically makes it so that everybody who isn't a Muslim is essentially an apostate in some form.
Wow.
That's one thing they have in common with atheists.
What is?
But these neo-pagans are just very hilarious to me. They're very funny. Oh yeah, go ahead, Arnaud.
What do they have in common with atheists? What?
Well, atheists will just say that everyone's an atheist until they're indoctrinated into some kind of religion.
Oh, yeah, that's not true.
Yeah, no. What was that? I think there was one YouTuber, I'm forgetting her name, who said that rocks were atheists because they technically don't have a belief in God because they don't have a belief in anything.
Yeah, and this is one of the absurd results of defining atheism as a lack of belief. That you end up with, well, are rocks atheists then because they don't have beliefs?
They do wear fedoras.
Rocks do.
All babies are atheists.
Yeah, whenever I get involved with an atheist who keeps saying atheism is a lack of belief, I always point out the whole rocks, babies, and people in comas, and it never ceases to get them riled up because they pull out the dictionary definition. They pull out the dictionary definition of atheism.
Yeah, it's like feminists.
Yeah.
I mean, I just like going to an older dictionary.
Well, if feminists ever come, I think if feminists tell you the dictionary definition of feminism, well, you can then just go, well, find what the dictionary definition of racism is, because you're certainly not using that.
Right.
But I suppose...
I'm going to look up the definition of atheism real quick here.
Being a fedora tipper.
Here we go. I'm linking this in the chat. Definition of atheism. Okay, that's the definition of atheism from before atheists got control of the dictionary. Back when Christians had control of the dictionary, here's what atheism.
What is it defined as?
The disbelief of the existence of a God or supreme intelligent being. And then it uses it in a sentence. Atheism is a ferocious system that leaves nothing above us to excite awe, nor around us to awaken tenderness. But it's important to recognize that that sentence is not part of the definition. That is using the word in a sentence. This was Noah Webster's 1828 dictionary.
Mm-hmm.
The first American
Can you link
dictionary.
that in the chat?
I did in the public chat. I guess I'll link it in our private chat too. The Noah Webster's 1828 dictionary was the first American dictionary of the English language, and it's excellent for finding out what words actually mean before SJWs started writing the dictionaries. So you end up with. I especially love its definition of marriage, which just really lays out what marriage is. Well, anywho, and of course, as a Latter-day Saint, with the Latter-day Saint Church having been started in 1830, just 2 years later, this is an excellent dictionary to show what how the language was at that time.
Although Webster himself was not a Latter-day Saint.
Oh, yes, obviously not. But I'm saying, this is from before the Latter-day Saint
This is
movement
back
really
when things were
started.
normal.
Yeah, when things were normal,
When people
This is-
weren't weird.
when people hadn't quite gone completely crazy yet.
Mhm.
So,
Is
and by the
anybody
way,
else making videos?
and by the way, about the people being crazy, I'm not saying that the abolition of slavery was crazy. There were anti-slavery societies all over the place in the 1820s. So
Well, I would say the cutoff point is probably around World War One.
yeah, but with you, it's always World War One. Anarcho Rain, do you make videos?
Just made one today about. It was actually towards a libertarian YouTuber by name of Shane Killian. I basically debunked the self-ownership principle and the private property principle that makes up modern-day capitalist libertarianism.
What are you then?
Wait.
Am
What
I?
did you?
Yeah.
I am that which stalks in the night.
Okay.
No, but like in all seriousness, like I actually do identify as libertarian, just anti-capitalist variety, anti-socialist variety too.
Then what variety?
Yeah.
Third positionist.
You're missing
So
a pro there. You need a pro.
So a fascist anarchist.
Well, honestly, I'm too special a snowflake to put into any mound.
Exactly. I put out a tweet at one point a while ago where it was like, what's the difference between, an SJW will go, I'm a trans demi boy otherkin squirrel. A political snarky SOB will say, I'm an anarcho-fascist libertarian traditionalist.
With a penchant for
Yeah.
monarcho. Yeah,
Monarcho-republicanism.
exactly.
They just like to put up all these ridiculous little
So what you are is just a jumble of nouns that are non-descriptive.
Let me put it to you this way.
Non-descriptive adjectives.
Actually, like to bring up I actually do have a great deal of economic principles in common with distributism, like an opposition to economic materialism, a need to distribute property as widely as possible, subsidiarism, solidarity. So, but the problem I have with distributism is it doesn't, while the principles are good, there doesn't seem to be like as much pragmatism, like how it actually manifests in reality. So I buffer that out with like national syndicalism, some mutualism.
I will fight you if you're a syndicalist.
Well, not the Chomsky variety.
As far as myself, I am a what you might call a pragmatic capitalist. And that, I'm pro-capitalist because capitalism works, but I'm pro-mixed capitalism because that's the only kind we've ever seen in the real world that actually works.
I would pretty much completely agree with that. My simple definition of myself would be I'm a pragmatic traditionalist. I like a lot of the ideas of distributism. I like the spirit of it in terms of emphasizing familial ownership of capital and emphasizing individual ownership of land and localized and communal, small businesses over big corporations. But I want whatever can. But clearly,
I should add is that this is not an endorsement of pragmatism as a school of thought, like the American pragmatists. This is just pragmatism as a tendency or as a reason for the position, not as an overarching, school of thought. So,
but yeah. Anyways, to finish up what I was saying is, as a correction, I like to use what Thomas Sowell said, which was, we basically replaced what works with what sounds good.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Yes, so, somebody probably ought to explain what. Mathoma said that he doubts I'm a pragmatist philosophically. Yes, I am not a pragmatist. I would not call myself a pragmatist, but I would call my reasons for supporting capitalism pragmatic reasons.
Ben, if you want people to do you want people to come into the stream from the chat?
If
they want to.
Sure. I mean, somebody who's got a mic and they think they might have something to say. Sure, we might invite some people on.
Yeah, I think that should be a very important caveat. Is only come in if you actually think you have something to say. Don't come in just to say something for that sake. Actually contribute. But like I was a bit upset. I was in a stream a few days ago, and we were just trying to discuss anarcho-capitalism, but we kept getting off topic because there wasn't actually really all that much to say, because we're just like, because there weren't any anarcho-capitalists on, and so all we just agreed, yeah, anarcho-capitalism is stupid, and we just moved on.
Yeah. I mean, you have to have sort of some kind of controversy going on to keep things going. So I think that we've Ghost of Buckley hasn't made a video yet. He's still working on his first video, right?
Well, yes, I am. I'm working on a video responding to Cult of Dusty Shives, Cult of Dusty, who has morphed into Steve Shives over time, dyed his hair white. And you might remember him as the man who made a video about the alt-right in the skeptic community. And he recently made several videos attacking Christianity. One where he claims that conservative Christians are more dangerous.
You're fading in and out.
Oh, okay. Hold on.
Yeah, you're having some internet issues, I think, with the fading in and out. But as far as Christians being dangerous,
Let me switch to a better internet. Maybe that'll help.
I have a. Oh well, that should
grab better internets. So somebody in the chat said, "I have nothing to say other than gas the Irish." A man after my own heart.
Okay, I just.
No, I'm kidding. That's an obligatory statement I have to say, being English.
I just put something funny in the public chat there, and I guess I can paste it in the private chat too. This I put this clip on my channel of from Batman the Animated Series. Or no, it's not from Batman the Animated Series. It's from the Justice League show. And this is what I link to anytime somebody says like I'm dangerous or Christianity is dangerous or whatever. It's Kevin Conroy, who he is Batman. I mean, Christian Bale and Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton, all those guys played Batman. Kevin Conroy is Batman. And what he says in this is basically...
Are you kidding me? Adam West is Batman.
No, Adam West is 60s cheese. Kevin Conroy is Batman. And he says in this clip, he says, maybe I like danger. It's completely over the top vocal performance that is just so perfect and so hilarious. And that's what I always say when somebody says that I'm dangerous or my ideas are dangerous. Maybe I like danger.
So what was that quote from Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe? God's not safe, but it's good.
Yeah, Aslan is not a tame lion.
Yeah.
No, Bruce Wayne is Batman.
Hey guys, I'm back.
That's ridiculous. I don't think Bruce Wayne is actually Batman. That's like saying Clark Kent is Superman.
Yeah, I know. So
they are technically the same person.
Who, Batman and Superman?
No. Batman and Bruce Wayne.
See, it's called having a sense of humor, Gusta Buckley. You're kind of missing it. So anyway,
did William F. Buckley have a sense of humor?
Yeah.
I think this is an imposter then.
But he also listened to the entire joke. Had to listen to the entire joke in order to get it.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say, I guess we've talked about everybody's videos here so far. I think.
I'd like to talk a little bit about myself and my.
You're still fading in and out.
Oh, am I? I'm trying to talk. I'm talking into the microphone as much as I can.
Yeah, I think it's your connection switching back and forth between like the low bandwidth mode and the high bandwidth mode, I think, is what's happening, and that'll sometimes cause volume shifts like this, and that happens when your connection is less than reliable.
Well, the video I wanted to moving back to what I was talking about, cult of dust.
Hang on. This is getting actually really bad with your talking right now. I might suggest something. Is your computer connected to the internet with a cable?
No, it's connected with a wireless network. There's four.
Okay. Have you got a cable?
You know, I do, but there's no cable thing in. Wait, hold on. Now let me just.
If you can get that fixed, and then come back a little later. All right.
All right, I'll get that fixed, and then I'll come back a little later.
Now, what you want to do is make sure you're connected with the cable, and then turn your Wi-Fi off to force the connection to go through the wire, and then see if that gives you better vocals on here.
All right.
All right. So sorry, folks, about all the technical problems. Hopefully, Ghost of Buckley can get his.
Ben, do you want to just put in the link in the chat so other people can come on?
Well, I don't want to just make the stream completely open.
No, we don't need any trolls just jumping in here.
Someone who's actually got something to say and says, can I join? I might want to send them the. Oh, great. Now I've got the hiccups.
Boo!
During my live stream, I get the hiccups.
All right. Do we want to talk about some current events then? There's a lot of stuff just happened today.
Joined.
Hello.
Loading gear. Hello there.
Oi, I was just creeping.
Have you got any videos you're making?
I actually just finished my semester, so I'm finally gonna start start again my whole Metal Gear lore thing, just because I hate not finishing projects.
All right. So hopefully people will be looking forward to that. And one of these days I need to actually sit down and watch those so I get all the Metal Gear lore, because I know nothing about Metal Gear except that it is some video games.
As long as you don't get turned off by the terrible quality of my first few videos.
I thought you could say the terrible quality of the first few Metal Gear games. I'm like, what?
The what?
I thought you were going to say, as long as you don't get turned off by the terrible quality of the first few Metal Gear games. No. I think I just said Dark Souls, because I'm really, really into Dark Souls right now.
Yeah, Fritz has the Dark Souls virus. It has to work its way through its system.
Must gain souls! Must gain humanity! Must kill Gwyn! Sorry.
So we have...
I love Dark Souls.
Yeah, so we have my...
I switched over from a 4-bar to a 5-bar network. Is this slightly better?
No, it's not better at all.
Oh, gosh darn it.
Oh, it rained the Fume Knights in, my boy.
All right, so I haven't talked about my latest video yet. My latest video is a response to counter arguments over
Snowden video.
What?
The Snowden video, that was funny.
Oh yeah. I mean,
I really like. I thought about that. I saw like the 1 or 2 inches of snow on the ground, and I thought, oh, how cute. There's about 7 or 8 inches around my house.
Yeah, I know, but you see, I'm a non-driver, and it's about whether you can get people to drive you places,
the same way,
and how well they clear the roads, So yeah, I mean, this isn't even what a real blizzard looks like in Kansas City. We do have some real cold weather sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. And we get all kinds of weather in Kansas City. And there have been times where we have like a foot of snow or whatever. But
anyway, so your video.
Oh, yeah, about the actual video. So I was responding to counter arguments who I think this is actually like, I guess he fixed something, but if he did, he certainly didn't fix enough things. because his videos, atheists have no morals, doesn't even address anyone that's actually intelligent making any actually intelligent argument. And he really needs to. Oh, I live in Texas. What is snow? That's funny. So, counter arguments is addressing Red Cups guy, who is like the dumbest
Josh
person
Feuerstein.
ever have a YouTube account.
He has a cool.
He is the cringe lord.
I can't believe the legalized gay marriage. I did watch like the Armored Skeptic made a response video after gay marriage was legalized, and when he actually did his Red Cups video, that was, I have to say, it was still pretty funny. It's picking low-hanging fruit, but you know, honestly, even I think that I might not shy away from going after certain Christian YouTubers, because I kind of want to go after the Vigilant Christian, who's a popular big Christian YouTuber who's a complete psychopath, where he literally, every video is everything is satanic. He thinks all Catholics are satanic. He thinks, I can't imagine what he would think of you, Ben, but I'm like, okay, I'm not Catholic, and I don't agree with everything the Catholic Church does. I'm not that crazy.
No, the Vigilant Christian thinks everything's an Illuminati conspiracy.
It is, isn't it, though?
I mean, yeah, but you're not supposed to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're saying is he's probably a big Alex Jones fan.
Nope, he thinks Alex Jones is part of the conspiracy.
Yeah.
Oh wow, okay.
I want in the chat. I want to build. I'm gonna do an Alex Jones build in Dark Souls.
Yeah. See. Instead of playing games, I spend a lot more of my time making games.
Ooh.
Yeah, same here. But I gotta learn to find some time to just put that down and learn to just enjoy my games, because sometimes I just get burned out.
Yeah. Well, the good news is, I'm not spending any money on on games, because I haven't finished the ones I've already bought. So, yeah, it's a good way to save money, is not play video games.
Well, I'm broke, so while people are buying the newest games, I'm just sitting here playing games I got like 10 years ago.
Well, Steam fixes that. You can play new games if you follow Steam sales and stuff that are only like a year old or something.
Yeah.
Or indie games that are brand new. It's really, Steam is awesome. They're turning the Drakes gay. Yeah, I don't. There is a lot. I mean, I think the best way to make a political or religious or philosophical idea that you disagree with, I think the best way to defeat it, any idea, regardless of merit, from a Machiavellian perspective, is to do this whole Hegelian thing, where you just go out and promote it, but you promote a version of it that is way more extreme and stupid than the real thing.
Like Red Cups guy.
Yeah, you promote something like Red Cups guy, that makes anyone who says anything that sounds even vaguely similar sound as stupid as that guy, and they can't get their idea taken seriously because that guy. And that's the same thing I think that Dean Esme does with his spending all his time being rude to atheists on Twitter. He's not as dumb as Red Cups guy, but he has the same effect. I think he makes theists look bad.
Dean Esme isn't dumb at all. I don't think. I didn't
say he was dumb. I said that's. But I'm talking about the effect that he's having. I think he's having a negative effect on things, because he just goes so extreme and rude to people all the time.
Yeah. He's definitely extremely ineffective.
So, anyway, Christians aren't doing enough to condemn gluttony.
Well, that is one problem about G.K. Chesterton. He was a very fat man.
Yeah.
Hey guys,
Yeah.
is it working? Is it working?
Keep talking just
It
a little
might
bit.
actually sound
Might
a
be.
little better, but we have to talk a little more for us to know.
Well, this is Ghost of Buckley.
Nope.
It's still happening.
It's still happening? Oh, what? Oh, hold on. Let me just...
It sounds good when you talk for like more than a second, but every time you start talking, the first second is really low and then it pops up higher.
Yeah, maybe there's something wrong with like the threshold on your microphone somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, so you got the technical terms.
All right. Well, this is going to be the most weird thing I've ever just done because I've never done live streams before. I'm totally new at this.
No pressure. 5 million people are watching though.
So you want to talk about how you're making a video about Cult of Dusty, who's gone completely Steve Shives. He says Christians are the real threat, not Muslims or
Oh no,
or whatever.
Is that really a thing?
He still thinks that Muslims are a threat, and he actually says that more people need to do videos on Muslims. He just thinks that the order should go Islam is the worst, followed by conservative Christians as a close second to that, and then SJWs and feminists should be a complete non-threat. We should ignore them. They have nothing to do with anything.
You know, I think we need. I think this is for shame. We need to be working harder. We need to be the #1 threat. I mean, if we aren't the #1 threat, there's something we're just not doing right. And we
if you're not
Start turning out the jihadis.
remember that Will Ferrell. Remember the Will Ferrell movie. If you're not first, you're last.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't mind being the #1 threat to atheists like Cult of Dusty, but I don't think that I want to be the threat. We are the threat in the way he perceives it. Like, he actually believes that we're worse, that we're close to destroying the country or something because of global warming and school choice.
Yes, the religion that is slowly losing more and more influence across the world because of liberalism.
Well, not actually losing. It's just in the West.
Not across the world, just in the West. Christianity
it's growing
is
in China and
growing-
Africa.
China and Africa, yeah. It's growing like crazy
Well,
over there.
would it be racist to say the part of the world that really matters?
Well,
I think you do have a point there. I mean,
America and
the
Europe
West do set the trends of thought. They really do.
I mean, well, Japan is one country, yet it's managed to have an absolutely enormous amount of cultural influence in the past several decades.
That is very true.
But it
I
borrows
mean, think about how
from
much
the
stuff
West,
is influenced by the Japanese.
Someone in the chat has a question for us. How does the Christian Theocracy feel about the Egyptian, EGYPTION, Chaos God Kek?
Well, as somebody who was on 4chan, essentially what this is this in part of how Pepe the Frog got into this is how he came into being in the first place, is, you know, people around the time of the Austrian election, because the thing is, because it's on poll, the top politics board, which became Cancer, they were like so depressed because, you know, they're thinking, oh, of course Trump's going to lose, of course Brexit's not going to happen, and then like when the Austrian election happened in May, and the guy and the far right candidate lost by 30,000 votes, and they just had the recount, and they had the election, did the election over again, and he lost by even more. When he lost the first time, they said we need to like pray to something, or we have to pray to Kek, pray to the Kek god Pepe, to make sure things end in our favor next time. And when Brexit happened, that was a confirmation that he was right. And then when they had the Turkish coup, the coup in Turkey, they're like, there's too many happenings, and they're thinking, what have we unleashed into the world with our worship of the Kek gods? And then Hillary Clinton mentioned it as a symbol of white supremacy.
Oh, geez.
Of white supremacy.
Oh man. Yeah, well, there's another good thing here. He said, G. Rexsaurus says, Ben starting Christian terrorism. His first attack on American freedom starts with him greeting someone with "Merry Christmas." and I'm just like, I'm like, dude, you're letting out all our secret plans.
I mean, here's the thing: is a lot of these new atheists, even the ones who are supposed to be the more rational ones, they literally believe that taking. Yeah, I mean, this is something Richard Dawkins actually believes, which is that taking kids to church or taking them to Sunday school is literally like, to them, it's literally like taking them to a like North Korean or like communist re-education camp.
Yeah, I went to Sunday school, and I don't think we had any re-education brainwashing stuff going on there. I'm mostly self-taught when it comes to my faith.
What are you?
I'm actually it's kind of funny. I'm a Catholic, but I'm a Catholic in the way that the original William Buckley was a Catholic. And so it's kind of a strange. I'm actually political. When it comes to politics, I'm a fusionist.
So you know, aligning yourself politically with the evangelical Protestants, but personally Catholic.
Yeah, in a way, I feel a lot of it. I feel a lot of alignment with most conservative Christians groups.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like my views on Reformation are radically different from what happened with than what someone like Distributists would think, for instance.
What, that the Reformation caused all the problems in the world?
No, I'm of the belief, personally, that God punished the Catholic Church with the Reformation due to its corruption.
I mean, have you even read about? Have you read about like Pope Alexander VI, the Borscht of popes, and what these people were doing? It's really disgusting.
Some of the popes were sexual libertines.
Yeah, that was Alexander VI. He had a mistress. The Pope had a mistress.
Yeah,
Yeah, you know, after like reading enough about like about Middle Ages England when Christianity was like at its height, and when I read enough about the Old Testament, I came to realize that I kind of want Christianity to stay at a humble place. Because if it seems like anything the Old Testament has taught us is that whenever Christians come to power, we seem to not know how to deal with it.
Well, I would ask you, Christians were in power in the 1800s. Was it really terrible then? Like, was Victorian England all that terrible? I mean, you had in terms of the morality. Like, this is where you got Charles Dickens and the Christmas Carol and all that.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm not going to claim to be as big a historian as you guys. That's why I normally stay kind of quiet. But I'm talking about like absolute power, kind of like when the church was pretty much a big political.
Like Oliver Cromwell.
Like I said, not a big historian.
Who's dissing Oliver Cromwell here?
Well, I am not, I am a philosophy major, not a history major, but my impression of Oliver Cromwell was that he wasn't that great of a guy.
Well, no, well, I mean, if you were a Catholic, sure.
Yeah, he did kind of.
I'm a Latter-day Saint, and that was a view that didn't exist at that time. But so having from a somewhat outside perspective, Cromwell does not look like a very good guy.
Well, the thing is, neither was Charles I, who he got rid of.
Certainly true. And
the fact is, the Catholic Church at the time, the Catholics were still doing really horrible things. You had the 30 Years' War and numerous massacres of Protestants. Like the reason, what they don't tell you about him invading Ireland is the fact that you had a massacre of about 20,000 Protestant Northern Irish people by Catholics in Ireland. So that's why he went in.
This makes me a bit awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, the main reason I'm a Catholic is probably because the Catholic Church is the last, what I consider to be one of the last, kind of just this. There's just something poetic about the idea of a church that can trace its roots all the way back to Saint Peter, supposedly.
Well, I would say the Orthodox Church could do the same thing. And when you say that, Protestant Christians say, like, Catholicism did not start at that time. Catholicism is a form of Christianity. Christianity started with the establishment of the first church in St. Paul helping establish the church. Christians claim that heritage as well.
Yeah, the Orthodox and the Catholics were one.
Will somebody shoot that dog?
Oh, hold on a second. Let me
Don't shoot it. Don't actually shoot it.
sorry. He's a puppy.
I love puppies.
Yeah, he's a puppy. He doesn't know better, and
Okay, we have another question from the chat here. It's from Memoirs of a Moron. Serious question. If we do make a cultural comeback, I assume I think he means Christian culture. How can we avoid making the same mistakes we made in the past?
That's actually a really good question.
Let's do mass immigration. That's your first step.
I would say a big thing we have to just come to understand is one is we really need to some of the morals that we're supposed to learn from the Bible that we seem to forget whenever we get any kind of power, and that is humility and forgiveness. And speaking of humility, we need to understand that we're not going to make America a Christian nation where everybody's a Christian. So we need to be able to be humble where we wanted them to be humble with us. In this, when liberals or progressives or whatever were in power, or whatever you want to call it, and just pretty much don't go all ban porn and it's illegal and stick religion everywhere.
I wish Todd Lewis was here so we could have a
reasonable discussion.
A part 2 to that discussion, because I think some of the stuff he said might have been more extreme than what he actually meant.
Like you said, we're not actually trying to create a Christian theocracy.
Yeah, and the last time was really weird because it was like I was having to remind remind Todd that the title of the live stream is a joke. I mean,
he is amusing.
I mean, now I said, I don't think it's possible to ban porn. But
that was an example. I just want to get back into that.
I do think, though. Well, I think this is very important.
You can ban some of. Well, can you ban child porn?
Yes.
But
I think the reason you're able to ban child porn, some of it does, yes. But I think the reason we're able to have a fairly effective ban on child porn is because the market for it is very small.
I would say.
Actually, it's not porn specifically. It's the act of having sex with a child. Like, I don't think people would care.
Child porn is banned, and the ban has been fairly effective for the most part.
If it was like animated, I know that's a weird question.
Yeah, maybe things like animations and text and whatnot. Maybe the absolute ban should maybe loosen up for some things like that because of how difficult it is to define when it's not an actual
and how that can be taken,
when it doesn't
and how that can be taken
with,
to censor things as well.
Yeah, it's sex with a child that we have to prohibit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that and the distribution of films and photographs and whatnot of children who are being exploited. I might say though about the whole porn thing. I do think that we can keep porn controlled. I think that there should be a law that porn always has to be behind an age and a consent gate. And this means even online, that you're not allowed to just paste naked pictures publicly on the internet and then like confront people with it, like shock sites and whatever, when they weren't looking to see that. And so a rule like Europe has done with cookies recently, where they have a rule that you have to notify users of sites that cookies are being used. I think we ought to do something like that with porn, where basically you don't see the porn until you agree that you're okay with seeing porn.
I have a thing. Here's the thing, if I can say, is to put this into perspective. If the question was, and I really like the question, is how do we make, if we have a Christian culture again, if we come back, the thing is, people will, part of it is, of course, we want to vehemently discourage porn use as a cultural thing. We want to express why we think it's wrong for people to use it, right?
Yeah, I've only been talking about it as a political question.
And I think when we think doing it on the cultural level, if it's successful enough, we would get the best way to hurt pornography is, again, simply to convince people not to use it, and the companies keep losing. They'll lose their profits, they'll lose their money, and they won't be able to produce as much.
Well,
yeah, that's something. But that's actually something I'm really for. Is like again, like Ben has said before, it's just mainly worrying about culture than about changing laws themselves, and that's why I mainly would hope that we remember, as not even just Christians but conservatives, is to remember why we hated the liberals and to not become as in your face about everything as they were.
Well, go ahead.
I was thinking that that's why I would prefer a more libertarian type of government system. And
It's still breaking up.
We can't hear you at all. We really can't.
Thomas of Aquinas actually wrote about.
You mean Aquinas?
Aquinas, yes, Aquinas. He actually wrote about how government law, not all government laws should be about banning things that are immoral.
And should not. I'm only catching every other word.
Yeah, we really can't hear you. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, Ghost Buckley, I'm sorry, but I think your internet is just not good enough to work for this stream. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I think it sounds like you have some worthwhile things to say, but since we can't hear them, I just can't see how you're able to participate in the stream. It's just your internet is just too bad.
All right, I'll dial out then. All right, good night, guys.
Thanks for coming.
I'm sorry. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming. And if you actually get a really good internet connection with a wire and not on Wi-Fi, and it's solid, then hopefully we can have you on at some point in the future. All right.
Try recording yourself in some kind of program and see if it sounds the same for you, because it might just be your hardware and not necessarily your internet.
Yeah,
this is a wonderful stream.
But I think it's his internet. I really think it's his internet.
The best that I can put internet connection I can get in this house. So if this isn't working, then I can't do anything.
Well, I'm really sorry to hear that, but I can't change it. I mean, if we can't hear you, I'm pretty sure the audience can't hear you either, and we'll catch like bits at like the beginning and end of words and stuff, but we're not getting this long thing you're trying to say. We just can't hear it.
All right.
So I'm sorry. I feel really bad about that. Oh man. Yeah. I know I would hate that if it happened to me, and oh man.
Right.
So,
can I say
evil,
what
oppressive, Christian, theocratic survivor. Who gets voted off the island next?
Let me just say what
Ben McLean. Can I please post the thing in the chat? Or I want to get some more people on here. I think we need more people.
Well,
let me just say what
I don't
what
want to
Chris-
post the link publicly.
Yeah, we don't need any trolls coming
We don't
in
need
here and just going.
we don't need cancer. If we got more reasonable people, that would be good. But I don't want to get
my friend
cancer
Blackjack
in.
is pretty reasonable. He's in the chat. He'd like to come on.
Sure, send him the link, but not to the whole chat.
All right, Blackjack, I'll send it to you on Twitter.
Yeah. I hope if Ghost comes back and he talks in the chat, then we can at least get short comments from him in the chat, and we will read those. Yeah, I mean, the only reason he kind of got kicked out of here was because of his bad internet. It was not because of anything he said. Okay, so that's super important. I don't want people who are reasonable to just get kicked out. Okay, so yeah, where were we? We were
Can I
talking
say
about
what Christians could
banning
do?
porn and how Christians should be different
Stop
from
interrupting
liberals,
each other.
right?
Right.
Wait. Before anybody says anything, I just want to remind everyone that the question was how we would how we would want to run or have things be if conservatives got kind of like the social influence that liberals have now. It wasn't specifically about porn.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Can I please say something now?
Go for it.
Because the actual question was that, let's say we conservative Christians became culturally relevant again. We stopped declining. We started increasing in influence. How would we? And we somehow managed to restore our position as the sort of foundation of society instead of liberalism. How would we prevent it from eroding like we did? Like it did happen. And I think trying to think of I think that should be.
I think we have to figure out the cause to do that. You have to figure out the cause of why everything went wrong the last time.
Well, the first problem is a little hard to deal with, but I think technological innovation might actually be against the tide of Christianity. It makes sinning much more efficient and much easier to do, and that's going to be a huge. It takes away a lot of the physical consequences of various sins. Yeah, the pill is one of the worst things to happen to Christianity.
Exactly. Yeah, I would say that one of the things we should do it would be to do anything we can to roll back the sexual revolution.
Yes.
To restore the actual consequences of having lots and lots of unprotected sex.
We should probably keep prostitution banned, at least at the local level.
No, I still like my solution, which is government provided service of prostitution, because it'll be so inefficient, and there's no.
They actually did in Taiwan, by the way.
Is there a big problem with it in Taiwan?
No, not today. They did it at one point as like a military thing, help soldiers.
Well, I think what we need is we definitely need an American Pinochet.
You know why prostitutes are called hookers?
Because they were provided by General Hooker during the Civil War.
Because they play rugby.
Yes.
No, they were provided by General Hooker during the Civil War. That's why they're called hookers.
So General Hooker prostituted himself.
Yes, exactly.
No. He
I know.
sent prostitutes to try to boost troop morale, which I think was a really dumb idea.
Hey, Todd.
Hey, guys.
Oh, you made it, Todd. Great.
We were just talking about your idea to ban porn.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think the general question, Todd, is that the question we were asked in the chat is, let's say Christian conservatives got back into complete power in society. What should we do to prevent us from losing that power like we did the last time? So what exactly was it that got rid of our power and influence?
Well, I think it was more institutional corruption mainly, especially in the Catholic Church. That's what led to the downfall of Catholicism in the first place. Or the decline.
In the 16th century?
Fritz, do you mean the United States in our context, you mean?
Yeah, or that, and also just generally the West.
Well, I mean, yeah, but it's a long curve, right? That's kind of where the decline started, where the Enlightenment sort of.
I don't think the Enlightenment necessarily came out of the Protestant Reformation.
No, I don't think so either. I think it was just a natural response to.
Well, but I mean, you think about it. Lots of Enlightenment thinkers came from, regardless of a Protestant or Catholic country. You had lots of Enlightenment thinkers from Britain and France, Catholic and Protestant countries.
Yeah.
No, I think, well, in our context, the United States, Fritz, one of the number one things that was responsible was the loss of control of education.
Yes, absolutely. I think
When
that's
the left took over education and then it was compulsory, as long as education wasn't compulsory, that wasn't too big of a deal.
Or if it wasn't in the hands, or people didn't have any choice.
Well, prior to compulsory education, it was mostly private schools.
I still think we should have some sort of mandatory education,
Well,
but I'm absolutely in favor of more choice and having it be controlled by conservative Christians. If we are going to actually,
what are we talking about now? I've lost track.
Getting back control of education,
or what you could do is you have like a school
choice.
Yes, a school voucher system where basically every family gets some money and they can send their kid to whatever.
I think school choice is basically the only way we're going to be able to win at all. Is we've got to take back education. It's the only way we have any chance at all is if we're going to is if we take back education, and because right now, left-wing atheism is able to use government funds to propagandize the populace through the educational system,
which of course violates the First Amendment. But you know,
well, atheism is not a religion, man.
Well, I don't think that violates the First Amendment. It certainly violates their interpretation of the First Amendment.
Well, yeah, it would. I mean, let's put it this way: if Christians were to use public funding to do what they do, they would call it violating the First Amendment.
Yeah. Now, I think we should totally. There's in an important sense, there's nothing wrong with what they're doing. What's wrong is that they aren't letting anyone else do it.
Well, it seems to be like it's an all or nothing thing. Is that I mean, was there ever really a time outside of a transitory period where academia was in the hands of like of an intellectually diverse group of people?
Say that again.
I'm saying is like if what you're saying is you would at least like it to have that. In academia, there to be a lot of intellectual diversity. So there's not just people on the left, there's also conservatives and Christians in proportional numbers to them.
Well, I don't see how we could enforce that. I mean, it's a sort of self-reinforcing kind of thing. But one thing I think one thing we can do is we need to change the system of how education is funded so that the funding isn't propping up all this nonsense.
And I think a lot of the liberal atheists and progressives absolutely know it because, just think about their reaction anytime you tell them you want school choice.
Well, they know what a threat that is to their point of view. But the thing is,
how they sneer at people who are homeschooled.
Yeah, when homeschoolers actually do better a lot of the time.
So like most people who are homeschooled don't actually end up being really stupid. That's actually a myth.
No, but they do end up being very socially awkward.
Now that may be a reality.
Although I will say
socially awkward. That may be true.
Although I will say there might be a case to be made that a lot of the school environments are somewhat very toxic and possibly damaging to young people.
Well, yeah, but people are toxic too.
Yes.
In their own special way. So.
Well, I might say that about this. I might say about this though. Well, wait, you can't shelter kid. Well, you certainly can, and some people, in fact, do.
Well, no, but you shouldn't. You shouldn't shelter kids.
Yeah,
Why
I'm
not?
just saying.
I mean, what are we even talking about by shelter kids? Shelter which kids?
And so if we're talking about like with homeschooling, how people who are homeschooled could be socially awkward because they don't get all the experience of interacting with their peers in schools. My only and I think a lot of that's true, but the problem is that I think there's a lot of, most of us, except for Todd Lewis, I think, actually went to public schools. And, a lot of that, you could kind of look back at it and going, it's kind of beyond people just learning experiences. A lot of the stuff that's in school, what with drugs and sex and all of that, can be very damaging to people.
That's true.
When we talk about being sheltered, I might say this whole thing about being sheltered, it's kind of like the word cult, it can mean so many different things. Okay, are we talking about like crazy people who like lock their children up in a basement and only feed them lettuce?
No, I'm talking about people who homeschool their kids versus not homeschooling them.
What I mean with sheltered is essentially there are ugly and toxic, quote unquote, toxic things out there, and they'll make my kid do things that I don't want them to do. Therefore, I don't want my kid to experience them. I think a good parent.
Don't all parents do that? At least at some ages and about some things.
So what?
Don't all parents do that at least at some ages about some things?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Do you want a 2-year-old watching hardcore porn?
Like a lot of things, I think obviously the word sheltering is just kind of like something taken to the extreme, and it is that taken to the extreme. And I think that extreme is pretty much if you're trying to avoid the kid seeing something that he's gonna see if he steps out of your house anyways. I mean, if I step out of my house, I'm not gonna watch hardcore porn. But what I'm saying is that I think that's where a good active role in parenting comes in, which is what I think these past generations have been missing, that they think the government needs to do all these things because they forget, oh, wait, that's the parent's job. And I think it's okay if the kids experience something as long as you as a parent have an active role to let them know this is a bad thing and this is how you can protect yourself from those bad things that you're going to have to see daily. I mean,
it depends on what the thing is, doesn't it? I don't think you can formulate this as a general principle like you're doing.
The point I'm talking about is that children can be very, very cruel, right? Bullies and all that, and cliques and all that. Is that generally, from my experience, is those are things that generally sort of taper off into adulthood. And I think I'm just trying to think, is there things that happen in public education, in the public education structure we have, that they aren't actually teaching kids about, when they're interacting with their parents, these experiences aren't actually beneficial to them? Are there ones that they could do without any actual negative repercussions?
I might say,
and honestly, I'm
seeing a lack of recognition that there is more than one direction that one can be extreme in, from these people who call themselves cultural libertarians. They seem very lopsided, right?
Or hypocritical, at least.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like, you shouldn't shelter kids from things, but what about
religion?
This thing or that thing, or what about religion? That's a good point there.
We don't like these Christians not allowing their kids to be exposed to new ideas. How dare you want to expose kids to your ideas?
Yeah, that exact double standard's been coming out of the atheists.
Well, yeah,
for so long.
But Ben, I'm the one. Like, I understand what you're saying, but I'm giving you my perspective, and I'm guessing that you understand. I don't think that. So,
I'm pointing out a problem with at least how you're saying what you're saying, because what you might say that won't be better is you need a reasonable balance between children being able to gain general knowledge of the world that everyone should have, and children needing to be protected from things in the world that really are genuinely harmful.
I think everybody agrees with
balance those two concerns of liberty and responsibility. Both of those things need to be balanced.
I don't think you need to balance them. Those two go together hand in hand, I find. Liberty and responsibility.
Well, if you want to, I like the Edmund Burke's sort of understanding of it, in that if you want to have a free society, you have to have an actual moral foundation to begin with.
Course.
Because an immoral person isn't free. Like even Saint Augustine, in 500, over 1500 years ago, said that the good man is free even if he's a slave. The evil man is a slave even if he is a king.
Well, yeah, because the freedom of cheaters is the freedom to cheat.
Well, it's not even that.
It's
It's like if you want, certain amount of freedom, or the very fact is that you saw this with the French Revolution, where in their attempts to when they openly tried to undermine the traditional and Christian foundations of French society, it turned into a tyrannical dictatorship. It didn't happen in America, and moral understanding, people have to understand that there's a reason why freedom is good, and that comes from morality.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's that, and also I think a big problem I have with a lot of modern thinking is we've, for the most part, embraced a radical individualism that goes beyond. Can everyone still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, we've embraced a radical individualism that goes beyond everyone having equal rights under the law and goes into this idea that every person gets to make up their own values, and that society is just this sort of about what the individuals want, and instead of what society is really about, which is families.
I would say,
the whole point of forming a human community is to build up and protect families and
tradition.
When we pass laws that grant freedom to the individual, that's the reason for that. And if it also happens to benefit a bunch of single people who just want to sleep around, that's sort of a side effect. That's not why the freedom is there.
Well, they need people who have families, not the other way around.
Yeah, I mean, it's people who have families who are the building blocks of society.
Yeah, that and traditions as well. I think societies also exist to, uphold traditions and values. Not,
well,
but I think
traditions are for the the traditions, I think, are for the basic goal that I just said, rather than the other way around. They don't build up families in order to preserve traditions. We preserve traditions in order to build up families.
Okay, but I would say, again, to help set up the distinction between the old sort of individualism and the modern form is, I don't think a lot of the Enlightenment philosophers even thought that, their understanding of individualism is that, okay, we want to make sure that people have these basic rights so that people can speak freely, people can express themselves without, and be treated as individuals, not just members of a collective. But the problem now is that's gone to encouraging people to be selfish.
Oh, well, at least for the some of the more extreme sort of Randite type people, yeah.
Well, even now, no, I'm talking about, just normal liberalism and our normal consumerist, materialist, individualist culture. It's no longer assertion. Individualism is no longer about protecting the rights of the individual. It's about ensuring that the individual. It's creating a society of me instead of
because the left has corroded all senses of collectivism. So now we hear collectivism and we think, oh, Marx is trying to take over our property, but we don't realize that collective is actually necessary for our individual rights to even exist, to have any meaning.
But I mean, even back when the United States was first founded, I think individualism wasn't even. I think individualism was probably just a long word for basically a family structure, a society centered around the family. And I think the founding fathers never.
The United States was in the beginning.
Yeah, that's what I say. I think that the founding fathers never really thought that it would ever go that far because they couldn't see any logical reason that it would.
Yeah.
Well, they couldn't foresee capitalism.
And
they could foresee capitalism, but they couldn't foresee like Marxism or something like that.
They couldn't perceive, mass production and mass consumption.
Yeah. Well, they could conceive mass production was kind of on its way at the time.
Nowhere, especially nowhere near what it is now, where people can live like kings from the ancient with all the. Yeah,
that's true. But I'm speaking more on a philosophical base, on the basis of Marxist collectivism.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that they probably did not see that coming.
Well, that was a result of the Industrial Revolution, which there were seeds of that starting at the time, but generally having industrialized societies wouldn't come for another several decades.
Well, yeah, and even then, a lot of the founding fathers didn't want the United States to be an industrialized society. Thomas Jefferson wanted it to be an agrarian society. Mm-hmm. Of course, he never got his way.
And I really don't like Thomas Jefferson. I mean, it's kind of disgusting. The Jefferson quote unquote Bible, where he basically just goes, this is essentially what a lot like the extreme end of the Enlightenment thinkers just wanted was, we're just gonna alter Christianity because we're gonna pick out the things we like. Like, that's not how it works.
Well, I'm not saying Thomas Jefferson. He wasn't perfect, but.
Yeah.
All of them had their flaws, and I would say though that collectively they did the best job that I think they could.
Well, honestly, I don't think the revolution was worth the lives it cost.
Well, I do, but that's a separate discussion.
Fritz is a monarchist. He wants to restore the British monarchy over America.
Well, I think that we would have had. I think essentially we would have had the same exact rights as we would have gotten anyways, and the fact that the British offered the olive branch petition, which would have given us representation in Parliament.
Yeah, but I don't like the idea of putting a certain family over all others just for no other reason than
it's not for no other reason.
It's hereditary. It is for no other reason than it is hereditary. And
it works.
It doesn't work.
Monarchy is one of the oldest.
What do you mean it works? Communism technically worked.
Yeah. No. All right. If I'm going to talk about works, I'm going to assert that can a monarchy create a functioning society that has a level of prosperity? Yes. And it's done it for centuries, if not millennia. It's done for millennia.
Okay. Name an actual monarchy you would like to live in now.
Imperial Germany.
No. That exists today.
So in the Middle East, you would basically. That's most of your choices.
No, we got rid of all the monarchies.
Fritz can name Vatican City.
Yes.
Liechtenstein.
Liechtenstein is. I think Liechtenstein.
No, it's an actual power. The monarchy has power, and it's an extremely rich country.
It doesn't count. It's not a country. Liechtenstein is not a country.
Yes, it is. It's a sovereign state.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. Look it up.
Okay. So in small states,
if it's smaller than Rhode Island, it's not a country.
Folks, I'd like to comment on this whole monarchy thing.
Singapore is not a country?
Yes, it's a city. Then.
I want to comment on this whole monarchy thing. Now, monarchy can work for a while, and it has.
Thousands of years.
We didn't have the same monarchy for thousands of years.
Japan did.
Hey Fritz, if you noticed, what do most monarchies eventually turn into?
What do you mean? Did Japan turn from? Did the Japanese monarchy turn into something else?
Are you going to quote the 5 degenerate regimes from Plato's Republic out of us now?
No. Japan's still a monarchy.
No, it's not. What power does the emperor have?
What power did the emperor ever have?
Well, that's a good point.
Here's the thing: do you know why there are monarchies functioning today? Do you know why the majority of them? Because America and the Allies in World War I sorry for the language. Basically decided that it was acceptable. It was morally okay to kill millions of people just because they didn't like the government.
That's
mostly what they did.
Whoa, okay. Are you saying that World War I was?
Yes,
Fritz,
I am saying
if you bring up World War I every time you're on a live stream, and the conversation always goes to World War I whenever you're around, people aren't going to want to talk to you anymore. I'm sorry, but
it's a relevant point though about monarchy.
But wait, Fritz, we can play that same game. How many people did monarchies kill for the expansion of their empire?
nowhere near the same amount of people
Tell-
as
tell-
goes through
They
democracy.
exterminated the entire Native American population in order so that Cortez could get his gold.
Wait,
Well,
Cortez
not
was a
only
monarch?
that, but
He
let's
worked
go
for the
back to
monarch.
World War One. Fritz, what started the whole World War One? What started World War One?
Russia,
Secret
the
treaties.
Franco-Russian alliance.
Oh, don't give me that
Se-
crap.
Yeah,
Secret
Todd,
treaties
where the
and a
hell are
need to
you?
expand their empire.
Listening.
Yeah. Oh,
I don't want to talk about World War I. I want to talk about the Revolutionary War, the American War for Independence.
Okay, let's go on to a fun topic.
What are we discussing about the American War
Now,
for Independence?
I was going to say, monarchy produced George III.
well, do you know people actually loved him in Britain? He was a beloved monarch over there.
Well,
don't know why.
yeah,
Ben,
because
to
every
that
tax
point-
that he levied on the colonies was a tax people back in England didn't
No,
have to
people.
pay.
No, I'm talking about
That
after.
only
I'm talking
made
about
him
even
very
after that.
popular.
I'm talking about even afterwards. He was revered as a good family man. He was people loved him because he was one of the first monarchs the first monarch in a few generations to decide that he wasn't going to have a mistress. He actually had an interesting as a new zeitgeist within the monarchies during the Napoleonic Wars, where they basically had a big a moral moral turn of 180 where they stopped having mistresses. Like you had with the same thing with Frederick Wilhelm III in Prussia, Tsar Alexander I, and
No,
Kaiser.
Alexander the First had mistresses.
Oh, he did. He was, but the people did think he was Jesus.
That's true. But it's really easy to convince Russian peasants of that sort of thing.
Yes.
Russian
Doesn't
peasants
seem all that-
aren't exactly bright.
This doesn't seem all that relevant.
It's not.
I know, but the point is, I'm saying, well, I think overall, why I brought up World War I is that the reason why it's a discredited system of government today is because of a war in which, at least by 1917, was a war of aggression against Germany. You can argue about the start of it beforehand, but by 1917, it's undeniable that the point was to destroy the German government, and that was killing hundreds of thousands of innocent people for no reason other than the fact they didn't like the government.
You're missing the undeniable fact that the entire reason that World War I started was because monarchies are incompetent.
What do you mean they're incompetent?
Well, okay, let's follow the entire
The Tsar
chain
was
of-
incompetent. The
Tsar
Kaiser
incompetent.
wasn't.
The Kaiser was incompetent. I'm not saying he's a bad man, but I'm saying he was bad at running a country.
Fritz,
Why?
you can't have monarchical politics with the technology we have today.
That's not even relevant. Monarchical politics just you don't. It's a
It's
lottery.
all about preserving their own power.
It's not really a lottery. It's
It
more
is a
of
lottery.
people. No. The princes are brought up to be monarchs.
Yeah, but
They're
they
actually
still have their.
educated in.
They still. I mean, look at what Tsar Nicholas II.
Okay, you know what?
They still have
There-
their
there-
own
and
personal
here's the thing: is
limitations.
there's a difference in beliefs. I think some countries probably should have been republics. Russia is one of them because the thing is, the monarchy that existed in Russia was nowhere near comparable to the monarchy that existed in, say, imperial Germany.
Well, at
because
first they've been-
imperial-
yeah.
No, because in Russia it was a despotic, complete autocracy. I am not in favor of that. It wasn't like that in imperial Germany.
Okay, so you just want a certain family to live in a fancy house that the taxpayers pay for.
Well, I also
Well,
want them to be able to-
constitution-
That's called the U.S.
monarchy.
president.
Yeah,
Well,
the U.S.
yeah.
president does that, and in fact, the
But-
British
but
monarchs
he's
they
elected.
aren't paid for by the state.
They are.
The government in England actually makes more money from the royals than the royals take from the government because of all the royal lands.
Mm.
So I have to give
Well,
Fritz that
well, that-
one. That
that-
having
that's-
royals would probably be cheaper than having Air Force One.
Yes.
What's
And the argument is there's actually the argument that the difference between having an elected government and a monarchy is the difference between renting out your house to somebody or buying a house. Because when you own a house, let's say, so like a monarchy owns the house, you have an incentive to make it the house as prosperous as possible because that benefits you, and you also have an incentive to be able to pass down something which is worth more to your children. When you're renting a house, when you're an elected official, you basically have the incentive to siphon off and extort as much money as you possibly can.
Yeah, but then we're getting into why morality, why morality is good. Why the decline in traditional morality?
No, that was a Machiavellian political argument, and as far as arguments in political philosophy go, it wasn't that bad. But I might say I'm somewhat more interested in political freedom than I am in economic issues, and that was an economic argument.
Well, I mean, basically, he's trading freedom for economic security.
Well, here's the thing.
Riggs would say that, I believe you're saying that you would actually support a heavy amount of local control, and then the monarch actually doesn't have all that much actual power.
And that's actually what you used to have. If you actually want to look at things on an absolute level of the size of governments, even in the age of absolute monarchs in say 1800, the amount of government interference with your life would have been only a fraction of what it is today in say modern America or modern.
Even in totalitarian Russia, the Zemstvas had a lot of.
And exactly, see, I actually like feudalism, because the thing is, that's actually feudalism is essentially a system of checks and balances, because of the fact that that control of armies is so decentralized, and usually they're only unified in the case of like the Crusades or something, a response to an outside threat, or some big imperialistic projects. And imperialism is way harder to do under feudalism, because there isn't a national army, and the king it certainly has powers, that has a state, and he is the most powerful of the nobles.
The only problem with that is that to maintain feudalism, you do need serfdom.
No, you don't.
Okay, name a feudalistic society that survived without serfdom.
Britain.
Britain is not a feudalistic society.
Britain did have an amount of feudalism, but it wasn't a serf-based society.
No, it wasn't. But I mean, look what happened to the English upper class.
Well, that's because they went to war with each other in the War of the Roses.
No, that's not even back then. That's just.
I thought that wars were a way that we critiqued a system. Remember?
Well, here's the thing. If you actually
you're blaming World War I for all this stuff.
Here's the thing, Ben.
The War of the Roses on your system?
No, because look at the comparative sizes of these wars. Not just accounting for the population, but the actual medieval battles were way smaller than
the English Civil War.
That was after the
100 Years' War.
How many people died in that compared to World War I?
That's only a question of technology.
Yeah, that's a question of technology, not.
I mean, that doesn't show whether the system.
Not only that, but populations were much larger, and you would want a proportion. And statistically speaking,
I would actually believe that. I would actually stand by a belief that that proportionally, battles in the Middle Ages were significantly smaller than in the modern period.
Well, that's true, but that's because battles in the Middle Ages took place with pointy sticks, and battles in the modern period take place with high explosives and artillery.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's not entirely accurate. In the ancient world, armies were hundreds of thousands strong.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
But you can still only stab so many people before your arm gets tired.
The question was the size of the army, and the armies were much larger in antiquity. The Romans would put in the field 60, 70, 80,000 people at a time. The Persians, 100,000. So
yeah, but Todd, the way you completely disregard technological change as a consideration.
Also those numbers are nothing compared to the World Wars.
But you're ignoring the consideration as well. Is we're controlling for technology. And if you control for technology,
how are we controlling for technology? I don't see it.
Up until the age of gunpowder, technology didn't change much. So what the weapons they had in the War of the Roses was similar to the weapons they had in the time of the Romans.
That's true.
And the point is this: if we judge a system within the confines of its technological limits, they killed fewer people than the Romans and the Persians did.
And I contest that this is because they didn't have national armies back in the Middle Ages.
Well, the Romans didn't have a national army either. They had
Didn't they?
basically mercenary forces.
No,
Basically,
the Roman Republic was an army who had every citizen had to serve in the army.
Yeah,
Well, yeah,
the
but that's
Rome,
not-
the military was super important. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not how the empire worked. Was basically a general could raise his own private army and then go conquer a swathe of territory. That basically
Yeah,
how
that didn't
how it
happen in
worked
the Middle
after
Ages.
Caesar.
Yet that didn't happen in the Middle Ages. You didn't have random nobles completely conquer gigantic swaths of territory. Those things were seen.
William the
rare.
Conqueror.
William the Conqueror.
William
was
the Conqueror.
That was before feudalism even fully was established. Anyway.
What? 1066 was before feudalism was established? I'm
Not
sorry.
fully. Well, even then, the fact is, was this gonna result in a massive change for the individual peasant, more or less? Well, actually, no. He did
No.
end slavery in Britain.
How so?
He officially ordered an edict saying
William
that
the Conqueror abolished slavery in Britain, is what you're saying.
Yeah, he did. He officially he ended
I
an
seem to
official edict
recall
asserting
hearing
that.
about that. Yeah.
I can't tell if that was sarcasm or not.
No, it's genuinely true.
Okay.
Yeah. Under feudalism, you can't really have slavery because because you don't need it anymore.
Yeah,
And-
you
and-
already have
and,
slaves.
and you want to actually have an honest
Yeah.
conversation about serfdom. The fact is, the average English serf worked fewer days than the modern British office worker.
But that's
Yeah,
Okay,
but
that-
they were working in.
Yeah, but they couldn't
weren't
work
working
the
in
land.
office.
That's a good work the land. You would have your little farm. You'd go work in the fields.
yes, you just
So
couldn't
what?
go anywhere else.
Yeah, you can't.
You
leave
had
Why would
because-
you want to
freedom
go
of-
anywhere else? What's out there? Tell me why they would want to move.
Oh, I
They
don't
don't
know.
like how the Lord's treating them.
I don't know why they would, but they should still have the right.
Yeah, you
Like a
can still have
slave
the
might, might not be better off.
Why-
when he
why
leaves
should
the
they have the right?
plantation, He should
Why should
still,
they have the right?
Okay, why
Because
should you have
freedom
the right
is-
to move?
They,
Well, they
should,
did, actually.
they should have the right because, behold, these truths to be self-evident that all men are
Yeah.
created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights.
But
These
Fritz,
Well,
I
I
have
don't
to answer
actually
the question.
are
Why-
life,
Sorry,
liberty,
Todd, I
and the
don't actually
pursuit
agree
of
with that.
happiness.
Sorry,
That's
Todd. I don't
why.
actually agree. I don't actually agree with that.
But Fritz, why should the lords get to have the crops that the serfs put their labor into creating?
Because he's protecting them with his arm, with his men at arms.
Did the serfs agree to that? Why can't the serfs have a directly
Why don't the
democratically
serfs
appointed
get a say?
representative?
Why don't-
Yeah, why can't it be a direct democracy?
Why can't the
like-
serfs elect their lord?
Exactly.
Hmm,
Why can't
well,
you have what they had in Monty Python, the syndicalist serf?
that didn't-
Help! I'm being
you,
oppressed.
you think the peasants know how to actually? You think the peasants could form a functioning
They
society?
could be educated if you had public education that wasn't
I-
controlled by secular leftists.
Do you know how? Yeah, you think public education would have been a viable thing in the
church
Middle
did
Ages?
amazing.
No,
Yes,
Maybe-
I do
maybe
think
not
provide
that
education
would have
to the
happened in
masses.
Middle
But it
Ages.
is now.
nobody. All right, how do you have viable education when printing a book would essentially be as expensive as getting a car?
You don't. You just read it out to people. Like
How do you teach them to read then? If
no,
you're
you
just
don't
reading
read it.
aloud?
You read it out to the. You just
What do you think they went to
teach
church for? They read the Bible.
That's what I'm saying. Well, that's what
The
I'm
church
saying.
was.
The
It-
clergy, what I think what we're claiming here is that the clergy did an extremely poor job of trying to educate the laity in the Middle Ages.
Well, that's because they had an incentive not to.
Yeah,
Yeah, thanks to the ruling powers.
Exactly.
Do you know not everywhere in the Middle Ages was even an actual feudalistic monarchy though?
Yes.
doesn't
We're
matter.
aware
We're
of this.
talking
So
about
feudalism
places
hasn't
that
even
are.
been tried, is what you're saying. We've never had real feudalism.
Feudalism.
No. We had feudal. No. I'm saying there were areas in medieval Europe which were not actually feudalistic.
Yes, but that's not the point. We're making an argument against feudalism, not that all of Europe was
Yeah,
feudalistic.
you're going completely off subject now.
Okay. All right. Fine. The thing I'm talking about, the actual benefits of feudalism would be a decentralized government. I'm not advocating that we go back to actually having
Yeah. Well, I
serfs and
agree with
peasants
decentralization.
because of the fact that we don't live in an agrarian society anymore. That's
Yeah.
why I like elements of distributism. My point is that if we're actually going to taking an honest look, let's actually look at medieval Europe. Feudalism is probably the best system they could come up with in medieval Europe because it's a system that's completely reliant on agriculture. And guess what? There wasn't mass slavery then, because when you have serfdom, peasants are guaranteed employment, and they are much more free than actual slaves. Yeah, they can't leave the land, but the fact is, if you look at how medieval Europe was set up, there was no real reason for them to do so anyways.
Okay, well,
and there was options for them to actually be able to, that they could actually become a freeman. You know, the lords would do this fairly often.
Oh, okay,
but elevate peasants to free men.
Medieval Europe and an argument
also,
for some.
You also understand the fact that in medieval England, at least, it was mandated that all men, all peasants, not just freemen, but all peasants, everyone owned a sword. And the fact is, oppressive, cruel lords didn't actually really happen in practice because of the fact that generally, in a small feudal society, in a small little town, let's say 100 peasants, a few people people in the church, a few people living in the town. That you'd have the lord, his family, and about 5 or 6 to 12 men at arms. Now, all the peasants have weapons. If they don't have a sword, they have scythes, they have pickaxes, they have actual weapons.
Well, yeah, but that's an argument for the Second Amendment, not.
Yeah, exactly, and that wasn't the problem back then. And you didn't actually have very common peasant uprisings because generally lords weren't really oppressing their peasants because more or less lords were more or less just as poor as the peasants. The only thing that would often distinguish a lord would be that the lord would have the title and he would have a cape. That's literally often the difference. He would live in a slightly better house than the peasants, but not very much. It's like, all right, he has 2 rooms instead of 1. The thing is, this idea of having these super exuberant, extravagant, rich nobles ruling over these, mud and feces covered peasants didn't actually happen.
I'm a little skeptical. I mean, I know that media
it wasn't nearly as bad as people portray it.
I know that media portrayals do go over the top about history all the time, and
people were not covered in mud,
cliches and nonsense. Yes, I realize that. But on the other hand, I think there's some rose-colored glasses going on here about feudalism, though. I think you might be going too far in the other direction.
Again, my point is that if you're going to look at the context in terms of technology, in terms of a medieval Europe, feudalism was probably one of the better systems they could come up with.
Oh well,
sure.
One of the better is a completely different claim than what you were making earlier.
You would have rather been a medieval peasant in Europe than living in the Islamic world.
Yeah, but your original claim was something
that's
like
probably true. I think that's probably true. I'd probably
living under a despotic Asian ruler, not just China.
That's
probably
like the
true
Mongols
as
well. But what I think the comparison you were making was between the American political system and European feudalism.
Well, I don't actually. If that's the case, I apologize if that's the. But
But you did say monarchy would be a superior system to what we have now.
I don't even believe that. I just think it should be at least a viable system if countries want to be that way. I don't think we should be allowed to go on giant rampaging wars, killing hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of innocent people.
No, I agree
because
with that.
we don't. And that's entirely what World War I was.
I mean,
Sure.
I throw all my cards on the table.
But I think you're doing a Maud and Bailey kind of thing here now.
I think the worst thing you could accuse World War I of being is a tragic accident.
Well, I think, again, what I keep reiterating is that it was that the ideological underpinnings of the war on the Allied side as being the, make the world safe for democracy, democratic imperialists. I think that people like the psychopathic criminal Woodrow Wilson was. I think that helped extend the suffering even more. And that I think that a different outcome of the war would have been better for the world.
Sure. I think
the American century of the 20th century was not a very good for the world.
Sure, but I think we need to make a rule: no World War I, at least not when Fritz is on, because he's gotten to talk about World War I a lot. And I'm saying, Fritz, if you want to have a live stream about World War I, make one on your channel.
Let's talk about World War III then.
Let's talk about
That's the
the
one where we
American
established
century.
the one
Since
world
Fritz
government.
disagrees with it, and I don't.
How many millions of people were killed?
What
During
in
what?
During the what's the American century? The 20th century?
Yeah, well, the half part of
I
the
thought the
20th and the
19th century was
21st.
the American century.
Technically, the American century is still going on because, nobody's knocked us off yet.
Yeah.
American hegemony, basically the
Yeah.
era. So post World War One or
Yeah.
post World War Two, I think.
I don't really see it changing in the future. It's probably
China.
No, China
Nah,
doesn't
China's
have
not
the
really
capacity.
catching up.
No, it's a joke.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. The
Well, I'm not as deep into world economics as some people, but it did seem to me like China does have a real chance of emerging as a
It has a lot of
not
economic
if you look at
problems,
their geography and their. I mean, China has a lot of people, but that's really the only thing they have going for them. They have water shortages everywhere. They've pretty much destroyed all of the usable land in the north.
They have a financial bubble going on in many of their cities.
They're essentially running their economy on debt now, which is going to end well. Debt.
Aren't they buying up our debt?
Yes, well, they're buying up our debt to ensure their own debt so they can keep their economy. Basically, they're manufacturing a lot of things at a loss right now because they're still kind of communistical.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So basically, like, the reason that a lot of steel is so cheap right now is because China's just making a bunch of steel at a loss, and they're selling it at a lower price, basically, than they're making it.
They keep devaluing their currency. That's not going to be good for them in the long run.
Why would they be
China's
doing
going to
that
have
with
an economic collapse pretty soon.
Why would they be doing that with the steel? I don't understand.
Manipulating their currency.
Well, the reason they want to do that with the steel is because they want to control industry. They
want to
have
outproduce everyone. Basically,
they misunderstand the point of an economy, and a lot of people do. The point of economy is not to provide jobs; it's to make sure that people can buy things as cheaply as possible.
Well, to ensure everyone gets their just reward. That's the point of it.
Well, no, that's the problem. Is that they're not helping themselves out. They're trying to provide jobs to their people. They're not trying to essentially mitigate scarcity. That's what
the same thing going on over here.
Economics is basically the science of managing scarcity.
Yes.
Yeah. That sounds reasonable.
They're not managing scarcity correctly. They're trying to provide jobs to their people. Now they're trying to control the world's industry, and it's not working out for them.
Is this similar to the dilemma of is this at all related to the dilemma of unemployment versus inflation?
Kind of.
There's not really a dilemma
in a way.
Like
well, there is a dilemma. Basically, too much inflation, and you're going to end up. Basically, too much inflation. You have low unemployment, but
I haven't looked at the chat in a while. Is anyone saying anything?
Well,
they're saying that they're consensusing that their consensus is that World War I should have ended in German victory.
I disagree with that.
Well, that's what the chat says. So take it up with them.
Yeah, chat, you're wrong. I think it should have ended as a tie, at the very least.
Distributist came here. Distributist,
oh my goodness!
Save us! Please talk about anything that is not World War freaking One.
They brought it up.
Tell us who should have won the war first.
The Pope.
No, I will.
We're gonna scare him away. I wanted to go back to talking about economics.
Every time we get together, is that it's World War One. Then I'm gonna have to start making a rule that I start just
stop
kicking
talking. Fritz was willing to change the subject from World War One.
Oh, that's right. Okay, I'm sorry. I was looking back in the chat, and that's still going on in the chat. So yeah,
it's horrible.
Let's go back to talking about the theocratic conspiracy.
Yeah,
when we banned porn, right?
I missed
we
that
were
part.
talking about banning porn, and Todd, are you here?
No,
Todd left.
Oh, drat.
He said he had to go to bed.
Oh, well, okay, yeah, we probably want to wrap this up in about another 20 minutes. So
that works for me.
And I might say about the whole political thing. Well, as my perspective as a Latter-day Saint is on politics is very connected with how the idea of moral agency or freedom of the will is so absolutely fundamental to Latter-day Saint theology. And I say that meaning, that's one of the things that makes it so different from a lot of the Protestant ideologies that were surrounding it when it was formed. Is we take a somewhat radical stance in favor of freedom of the will, and this crosses over into politics and the views on the importance and necessity of freedom in politics, and so. Yeah, there are a lot of things that are wrong that I think we shouldn't be making laws against, but it should instead just be preaching against, which people need to be free to do, because if we stop those things, then we're giving the government way too much power over everyone's lives.
Ben, can I actually just interrupt you for a sec? Can I understand what you're saying when it comes to the government in general, but what if it was just the local or community government? So you had, say, a Christian community decide we don't want porn in our neighborhood, or we don't want drugs or other stuff.
I think that's a sliding scale. I mean, I think that the bigger the area is, I think the less the less tight you can make your rules, and also I think it fundamentally changes whether someone's free to leave or not. What kind of rules to make? Because if somebody is stuck there and they can't leave, and then you start making a bunch of draconian rules, that makes you a tyrant, But if being there is a sort of a privilege, and they can leave anytime they want, but if you're going to stay here, you have to follow our rules. Then you can make rules that are a lot tighter.
Isn't that kind of the overall point of a state, anyways? But that's not my overall point. And the point I was going to make is, I think that if let's say with porn, like, what would be the think about it this way: what's the goal of wanting to ban pornography? Well, it's because we don't want people using pornography. Now, if the end goal, if the ultimate goal of this is to have a reduced usage of pornography, I think that doing this culturally, by trying to do this through a culturally, not politically, through a culture war, like, advocating for why it's bad, advocating for a different lifestyle, like traditional lifestyle, that would probably be a lot more effective, because that would actually convince people not to do it, rather than just go. And it would get rid of the narrative that they want, that, oh, look, these evil Christian theocrats are trying to ban everything. It'd be be a much better way to going about this, culturally.
Yeah, that's certainly true. But I do think that that it is reasonable for the law to put porn behind an age and consent gate.
Yeah.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'm not so sure I understand this distinction. Are you saying that all consensual acts, by their nature, have to be legal and should be only confronted culturally? Because I can think of a few. I mean, what's the line you're drawing? I guess that's the question. That's the interesting question, right?
I think I was thinking about specifically something like pornography.
For instance, I think prostitution should be illegal.
Yeah, me too. Well, okay, I have my
Fritz, you want it to be provided by the government so that no one will want to use it.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, well, hold on. What?
No, it's a joke.
It's a joke that I think the best way of getting rid of having the best compromise would be to have both prostitution and marijuana be state-provided services. So that means small government libertarians are now would actually have to argue against marijuana, and because the government's providing it, it'd be so inefficiently run, no one would be able to actually get weed.
Of course, they just argue for the privatization of those services, not for banning.
It's more of a joke than anything else.
Understand this is ridiculous, right?
Yeah, no, it's a joke.
Okay, yeah.
No, I'm
pretty funny joke in certain contexts, but not when you explain it from that direction.
I still haven't seen what the bright line is, though. I mean, I'm waiting to hear someone propose one, I guess.
The bright line between what consensual acts can be banned and which ones can't.
What is the line between a consensual act that you would seek to confront only culturally and one that you'd explicitly ban? That seems to be the interesting question, as far as I can tell.
Well, I think what we'd want to at least confront culturally would be sex outside of marriage.
No, I'm not talking about individual things that you'd want to do culturally.
He wants to
individual
get a
things
general rule.
I want to get a general rule of what is how would you apply this going forward, and how would you explain that rule to other people?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
So basically, okay.
I did not actually advocate this idea that some things we only confront culturally, and some things we I didn't quite say it that way. What I said was some things we should ban and some things we should preach against is what I said.
Sure, no, I understand that. I'm trying to. I think that if I were, I'm putting myself in the shoes of your opponents.
I think we have to look at whether there is a compelling state interest about whether the government gets involved in something or not. We have to look at whether it has a compelling state interest to protect the basic social order.
Should I play devil's advocate here, because I can think of it?
Do you want me to bring devil's advocate on?
Well, he would do just as well. But Fritz's previous example of promiscuity would be something that obviously the state has an interest in, but I don't. It seems like there's a universal opinion that it should not be infringed upon by the government.
I don't agree. What is the state's interest in stopping? What
Families?
is the state's interest in banning promiscuity?
Upholding the family unit.
That's what we're talking about. Every one of these things has a state interest attached to it.
I mean, the state will find a way to be interested in anything.
Yeah, it could ban sugary drinks because that makes people unhealthy, and then when they're unhealthy, they can't.
Yeah, and I said a compelling state interest that is about preserving the social order. So I think we have to look at whether it has a wider direct social effect than just
Ben, I think the problem you're running into is that when you're going to give limits to the government, you have to be very specific, or else they'll stretch them.
Yeah, I have an objection here. This whole compelling state, some state interest, this whole language of compellingness and intrinsicness, this is the language by which the absolute expansion of judicial review has crept over the past 60 or 70 years.
Like general welfare.
Yeah, exactly.
We aren't necessarily even talking about what we should do like on the federal level, though. We're talking about the state in the abstract.
Well, yeah, but that's where it eventually leads.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm a bit
I
confused.
don't agree. I'm a federalist. I don't see why everything has to eventually be decided at the national
Because that's
level.
what the progressives want. The progressives always get their way eventually.
Well, we're talking about what would happen if we got into power here.
Well, how are we going to do that?
That's not the conversation we're trying to have right now.
Again,
we need to go back to like what's the actual. I think what the distributus is trying to ask is if we're going to talk about like addressing something like it, because what we want as traditionalists is we're against sexual promiscuity. We want what we see as a return to the traditional understanding of sexual ethics, as in it should be, the Christian understanding is that it's reserved for the family. So we're against things like premarital sex, homosexuality, prostitution, and pornography. And I think that the question is, how should we go about trying to eliminate these things? Is there, and what's the distinction between when we start, what's the distinction between us trying to use the state to do it or doing it on the cultural level? What's the line that we should draw? How do we decide which things should be done through which way, and why? And how do we make sure that line isn't arbitrary?
And here's the thing
about
one at a time.
One at a time.
Well, it's live stream. I talk on.
There, gloating gears. What?
Wait a minute. It's my live stream. Can't I talk on my live stream?
Well, it's just a bit rude to interrupt people, and it's not productive.
Well, I was trying to answer Distributist.
I think we have to grant that the person who runs the live stream has the right to total moderation.
I can mute people, so practically that's not the case.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to respond to
I think, I think Ben
first,
should have the floor whenever he wants it.
And then I'd like to let Loading Gears go next.
Yes.
Okay. So I was going to say, I think that politics is a very messy endeavor that doesn't always lend itself to principles that can be understood completely in the abstract like this. And I'm echoing, I think, Edmund Burke on this issue, who also was against this sort of invention of abstract systems for everything. I think there are some abstract rules that we can have that are good, but I don't think everything about politics is reducible to a set of abstract rules. I think a lot of things depend on the cultural and technological context, and so can't just be all decided in advance like this. We have to be looking at what's reasonable and what we can do. And we have to remember that politics is not the business of getting everyone to do the right thing. It is the business of getting everyone to do the best you can get them to do. That's all I had to say. Loading Gears, next.
I just want to say something short that was just kind of to help people direct their answers, because I'm like I say this a lot, and I don't say to denigrate myself. I'm not as kind of like well taught in history and philosophy as you guys are, but I do like to think of way. I do like to kind of study the way that people think and how they react to things throughout time, and kind of ask myself why it happens. And because of that, I just want to say this to kind of direct you guys' answers, and that is, whether you guys want like some kind of conservative / Christian thing to happen in government or in culture or whatever, I think realistically speaking, we can't even get to government in any kind of realistic way before we touch culture, because to think that we're just going to make laws based on conservative Christian morality.
Yeah, but Loading Gears,
this
is a philosophy channel, though. So I talk about philosophy on my channel, and so we do build cities in speech, and we do talk about academic issues sometimes.
I might be able to connect Loading Gears issue with a practical concern.
Okay.
And also link it back to the philosophical one. So, Ben, your answer, I think, was fundamentally correct. If we presumed that the culture and the reigning government were guided by the principles that we all share. However, we don't live in that society, and if we are going to be, say, partial stakeholders in the government, and we're trying to push for some kind of legal regime that has some actions as essentially sanctionable and some actions as not sanctionable. We have to be able to communicate that in a coherent way to people who do not necessarily share our values of the good in their absolute fullness. And therefore, hard and fast bright lines are useful to help other people understand exactly the extent of our ambitions inside a government where the morals that we espouse are not universally held by the government itself.
Yeah, well, I don't think we all even agree on everything. So even internally, I'm
saying
got that.
The abstract rule is a useful construction to have in practically convincing people that you have a coherent way of governing a society.
If I may speak, I think if what you're talking about, Distributist, is that, if we're going to be if we're against pornography, let's just say, specific as an example, we're against pornography. We think what our desired outcome is a decreased use of pornography. Whether we do, what you're trying to ask is, when we're trying to, if we're going to combat this culturally or politically, how do we combat, how do we, what's the best way of us trying to communicate why we're doing this?
Fritz, hold on. If you're going to talk about why, I think we have to recognize that reducing use of pornography isn't an ends. That's a means. We have to think about what is the ends behind that means.
restoration of the family structure.
See, now that's good. I mean, that's not the summum bonum, but that is another step removed from why we're against porn. Now the question is, how will reducing the use of porn help with that goal?
Well, I think it's because that's something that's directly. I mean, just saying from a Christian perspective, again, the understanding is the only sex that's acceptable is within marriage. But if we're trying to go over through more, if we're not trying to just be completely explicitly Christian about this, the argument is that, usage of pornography does have ill effects towards people and does have ill effects on society.
I think it's like a drug.
Again, and that's what I was trying to say culturally.
And I mean for the individual, it's like a drug.
Mm-hmm.
It's an addiction.
And
it keeps people from, it's finding mates, basically. That's why it's harmful to the family unit.
It provides a false understanding of sexuality.
Maybe.
Not sexuality in terms of just, what the point of sex is, rather than, gay or straight or whatever.
That, but I'm looking at it more immediately, and that is people who get into it are trapped by it. I mean that's I think that's the not finding mates and stuff. Yeah, okay, that's bad. But I think the more immediate harm of pornography is that people are trapped by it, and they can't get away from that. It becomes a chemical dependence in the brain.
Well, I'm thinking, people know this about a lot of drugs, but but drug use is still a major problem. How do you manage to convince enough people not to use it? I mean, it's just telling them, that okay, pornography can do X, Y, and Z to you. Is that really going to convince a lot of people to not use it?
No, it's not.
Exactly. I'm thinking, this would be the case of, I mean, even narratives might not be all that effective because, you've had so many different, narrative things against alcohol use, like people trying, in the drug war, you had all the commercials and kid stuff where, anti-drug stuff was everywhere, and outside of tobacco, I don't think it's actually been effective.
I think that the whole consent gate thing that I proposed, the reason I thought that would be good was not because I'm invested in the ethics of consent, like the secular consent is why we do everything and radical individualism and all that. The reason I thought that was a good idea is because it puts internet porn in particular at sort of one remove psychologically. So you have to be making a decision before you start getting it. Where it stops being something that just people just randomly run across, and that pushes it back towards where you had to go to the actual place to do it.
So, you can't just, Google image search naked people.
Well, you can, but then you would get, are you sure you want to do this? You have to show, you have to say, what's your birth date, and are you okay with, that, you'd get basically a screen like that that wouldn't show you anything unless you first go through a consent thing.
Because I think we could at least make some headway in, at least arguing, if not against pornography itself, but trying to do it more gradually in, trying to argue against the massive amount of sexualization that happens in just normal media.
I think that is a point that Christians need to focus on a lot more. The feminists have been doing it, and some of the Marxists have been doing it as a way of being anti-capitalist, and Christians haven't been doing it all that much.
And we actually have a moral imperative as to.
Yeah,
the problem is just that. The problem though is how do we not come across as oh, you want to take away our sexy women in video games? Yeah, honestly, I'm okay with that if it's because I'm a big fan of the rating system. Like, okay, this game is rated M for people 17 and up. Okay, that's where you can have sexualization. But like, I'm just talking about like people watching just a normal television show. Like in music videos as well. I would think at least one concrete thing I would do would be to get rid of the disgusting sexualization in like, music videos.
Just ordinary advertisements for like Pop-Tarts or whatever. It ends up with women in like underwear and stuff. And it's like, what?
This is not okay.
This is not okay. We're using sex to sell any random crap that the market wants to sell, and that is manipulative.
The problem I can't help. I agree too much with the previous assertion that this is something that's so out of whack with the culture that preaching this message in the current culture is going to communicate almost nothing.
We're not going to change the culture till we restore the family unit.
Well, I'm just wondering if there's a way, there's a partial way that actually translates into modernity a little bit better than what I'm hearing right now.
Sure.
I also think that what somebody else said was that you have to fix the family unit before you attempt to change the culture. It's a little backwards. I think that the only way to fix the family unit is to change the culture.
Well, how does that work? Because the family unit is the main hub that protects society from cultural degeneracy.
Well, I mean, basically, you just have to keep pushing stuff.
Oh, folks, it is now 9 o'clock. We have been going for 2 hours. That's kind of what I planned, but I think we're getting to some really good discussion topics, so maybe we want to keep going a little longer.
Sure.
Let me just throw out one way we could restore the family unit and fix cultural degeneracy. Trump actually made a huge leeway with his economic populism. If Christians could go to that, and what I think Christians actually have to do, they need to retake social justice from the left and say, no, we're the true social justice warriors because we don't care about identity politics like race and gender.
Maybe we shouldn't use that specific term.
Well, I think it actually would make sense to fight the leftists by trying to take the turns. And if Christians could fight to change,
they do, we should co-opt them.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, here's the thing: is like
not co-op. Yeah.
I mean, because the fact is, the anti-SJW community on YouTube is not. These classical liberals are not very numerous. They don't really have any real cultural power.
Right.
No.
Sargon of Akkad has no real influence. I mean, Gamergate and the petition to suspend social justice were the closest he had actually come to any sort of.
Sure, man. But I need to say something here. Sargon of Akkad is about as much as our individual channels can aspire to in this particular medium.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Short of actually getting a publication deal.
But I'm thinking,
and that's not insignificant. Gamergate was instrumental in taking down Gawker. Sargon
so was Peter Thiel. I mean, Peter Thiel managed to do what took Gamergate months.
We're talking about what can be achieved with small measures.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I would say that.
Here's the thing. I think that the culture war is one in basically popular, like television shows, movies, that kind of stuff. That's where you win culture, basically. That's where you have to fight. You have to fight in entertainment, basically.
Well, I would say it's even more fundamental than that. I think Distributist accurately pointed out that the biggest thing is academia. That getting control of academic institutions would help us the most. That would be the best institutional power we could get.
Yes, but that's more difficult than.
Yeah.
Yes, but it's necessary. It's the most difficult, but it's also the most necessary.
Game plan, then.
I feel like that shouldn't be the first step, though.
I would just ask Fritz, if we were going to do that, how would we do it?
Yeah. Well, that would require, we had like a 3-hour stream on it, but I don't think we came up to.
In order to influence academia, you need some sort of cultural influence.
I don't think that's actually true. I mean, okay, let's say you get lots of productions of anti-progressive movies. Well, how is that gonna affect what professors are
well, it's not just movies. I mean, let's look at how basically the cultural Marxists took over academia. Basically, it started with hippie culture in the 60s.
I would say it was not really quite that. But
okay, what would you say?
Well, these were academic Marxists. They weren't coming. They were the ones who started the hippie culture in the first place.
Oh, okay. So I could see how that was the thing.
And the fact is, okay, let's say you get tons and tons of people like writing anti-progressive books, anti-progressive movies, and cultural works. Well, they're still just going to keep rehashing the same Marxist critical theory works. The fact is, you have to get individuals in academic institutions who are not progressives or liberals if you actually want to see lasting change. And I think one of the best ways you can do that is what what Ben said would be a school voucher system is the only sort of practical, some semi-plausible way of actually, getting complete control of academia out of the hands of progressives.
I actually think I don't think that's actually the most promising route at this point.
Well, here's the thing. Can I just say so? I noticed there are 3 areas. It seems like when we say we got to change
the media,
culture,
politics,
how do we change the culture? We have to change education. How do we change education through public schools? We have to change politics. How do we change politics? We have to change the culture. It's like we keep getting ourselves boxed out by these 3 areas that we need to change all these areas of society, but we'd have to change the other one first, and we don't have control of any of them.
Well, I might say this. I have a thing I might say. Who do you think was ultimately more powerful, Vladimir Lenin or John Lennon?
John Lennon.
Yeah.
John Lennon was absolutely more powerful. And I think that's where Christians actually, that's where the front lines are. Not just in music, but in
movies suck.
Making stuff. Even the movies that suck are at least doing something.
Yeah. But John Lennon became so popular because he was defying tradition. How are Christians going to do the same thing by upholding tradition?
Well, I would say
tradition is whatever the previous generation did, and the previous generation grew up in the 1960s.
This is a quote from Julius Evola. This is a quote from Julius Evola, the guy who basically criticized fascism for not being right-wing enough. But I really like this quote where he said that traditionalism is the most revolutionary ideology of our time. I think that if we want to make inroads to culture, possibly a way of doing it would be to portray traditionalism as being something which is going against the culture. It is presenting traditionalism as a countercultural movement.
But here's the thing, though. The problem traditionalism has, in terms of convincing the youth anyway, is that the current modernity promises people to indulge in their basic materialistic desires. Traditionalism is about getting people to overcome those desires, which doesn't sell nearly as well.
What about the fact that Distributus, you pointed this out a couple times, that the thing is modernity isn't sustainable.
It isn't, but it's very sellable.
But guys, this is the thing. I mean, you're talking about these things. The focus needs to be on the practical advancements you can make in each of these fields.
Yes, exactly. And honestly,
it's not going to be like determining which field is the fundamental one, going to that one, and then putting all your chips there. Each of these individual areas you've talked about, they have little pieces where the modern order and the liberal order are breaking apart. Now, if you tug these threads, one of them is going to come undone. Now, who knows which one that's going to be? But in any one of the situations you've mentioned, I have seen threads. For instance, in education, one of the things you did not mention were that there are all of these fields currently in academia that the modern mainstream political establishment in academia is throwing off the ship, like, for instance, medieval studies, like, for instance, Western Civ. If conservatives are there to pick that up, that's a major thread they can put together towards a countercultural force.
And
And there's many other things too.
If I could, yeah, actually, from my college, essentially the history professors were more or less. I mean, the primary European history professor was a genuine conservative Christian.
Mm-hmm. If the community changes at the academic level, it comes from the research communities first, and it filters down to the teachers. Mm-hmm. At least in that context, that's the way you have to approach it for higher education. There's a mistake in thinking that higher education filters up from the primary school level. I'm not saying primary school isn't important, and primary school should be confronted through homeschooling and vouchers. But if we're talking about higher education, it has to come through the academic research communities. That's the only way to influence. It goes top down.
How would you see traditionalists being able to have an effect there?
That will come from convincing and allying with one or several of the disaffected heretic professors that are currently being harangued in academia, like Jordan Peterson. Mm-hmm. Make them friends of the traditional movement, and then they will start raising up new generations of academicians in their own form.
Okay.
That's what I would think.
Now, what other?
So it's like Anthony Flew, except we need to get him when they're a little younger than when he changed over.
Yeah, we need to get them while they're still training graduate students, not like when they're on their deathbed.
Yeah. Oh, that was awesome.
What other opportunities would you see? I mean, what do you think about in politics? Because that seems to be one of the more fluid ones. I mean,
I don't know about politics. It's so hard. The thing is, you're not going to penetrate progressive strongholds in the current political environment.
Trump has to a large extent.
Well, no, he's consolidated a coalition. He's consolidated a coalition outside of progressive strongholds.
Yeah.
That momentarily won a victory against them. I'm not so sure how repeatable this is.
Well, I mean, it has at least bought non-progressives some time, at least.
I would say that its repeatability would depend entirely on Trump, which is the scariest part of the whole thing.
I don't know. I mean, if the left keeps doing crazy, stupid things.
That's true.
Every time they do it, they keep discrediting themselves.
I mean, they discredit themselves for a few more people. A few more people realize how crazy this is. Every time there's some nutty thing some university does, a few more people read that. A few more people realize how crazy things have gotten. Eventually, somebody might on the left manage to stem the flow of some of this craziness.
There's a critical step here missing, Ben, and I have to go in 5 minutes.
Sure.
You have to be able to form you have to form one or two people bleeding off in random directions isn't going to get what you need. You need a bunch of people.
We have to present alternatives.
No, hold on, Fritz. Let me finish my thought. You have to get people inside a community with a common cause. So if for instance, like Western civilization keeps on having heretics, you want to get them formed into an alternative shadow community. That gives you power. One or two naysayers that gets pissed off, like they'll salami slice off a bunch of people, and they won't even blink. It's only when all the people they've kicked out form up a new institution that it really begins to threaten their power structure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry for interrupting. I was just going to say, yeah, I think that's the big caveat is, you're going to, even if we're going to talk about ordinary people, it's like when they see Martin Sheen and these celebrities complaining that, arguing against the Electoral College voting for Trump. The problem is they have where do they go to? Do they? It seems like they would just kind of float into space, just sort of be different. Yeah, they'll be disenfranchised from hardcore progressivism, but where do they go to? And I think what we have to do is try and advertise traditionalism as a viable alternative to this.
Yep.
Okay, well, I think that about wraps it up.
Okay, guys.
And
Distributors, when is your stream?
It's in 3 days.
The 22nd?
Thursday night, same time, but on the Distributors channel. And we're going to talk about the war on Christmas or Advent.
Advent.
I guess.
It's going to be a very laid back stream, so
Yeah.
Well, especially if you have that voice.
Party.
yeah.
Don't worry, I won't bring up World War One, and I'll be very.
I'm trying to be a little bit quiet because yeah. Well, anyway, yeah, that's it.
What's not your stream?
Fritz, if you do a World War One live stream on your channel, I think that would actually be a really good idea. I think people would seriously listen to that. So
Yeah,
that wasn't a joke. You should do a World War One
yeah.
stream on your channel, but you probably shouldn't invite me because I'm not a good enough historian.
Okay.
I'll argue with anybody.
I'll argue with you, Blackjack, because we seem to have some different views on World War One, so we can actually have a good debate.
I would totally encourage people whenever Fritz puts that together to tune into that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Buckley accent's back on.
He is?
No, your Buckley accent.
Oh, right. Well, actually, I thought, I don't know whether everyone would hate this idea. I thought I might try and do, anyone who needs to go, you can go now. But I thought I might try and do a live guitar cover at the end of my stream.
What
I
song?
would love to hear it, but I have to go. So
Okay.
Good night, distributors.
Night.
Yeah, good night, guys.
Well, this is a song that I am repurposing. Hang on a second.
He wrote it.
This is a song that I am. Yikes. This is a song that I am repurposing to basically be anti-alt-right. Because this is not an alt-right channel or stream.
Or, group.
Yeah,
Or group.
you Nazis can go fuck yourselves.
Watch the language.
Excuse the language, yeah, sorry.
So I'm gonna do a DC Talk cover, and I'm gonna try my best. I'm not super good, but I'm gonna give it a shot. So here we go. Pardon me, your epidermis is showing, mister. I can't help but note your shade of melanin. I tip my hat to the colorful arrangement, 'cause I see the beauty in the tones of our skin. We've got to come together and thank the maker of us all. We're colored people and we live in a tainted place. We're colored people and they call us the human race. We've got a history so full of mistakes, and we are colored people who depend on a holy grace. A piece of canvas is only the beginning for takes on character with every loving stroke. This thing of beauty is the passion of an artist's heart. By God's design, we are a skin kaleidoscope. We've got to come together. Aren't we all human after all? We're colored people and we live in a tainted place. Colored people and they call us the human race. We've got a history so full of mistakes, and we are colored people who depend on a holy grace. Colored people who depend on a holy grace.
Yeah! Woo!
Thank you. Okay.
That was very good.
Yeah, very good.
It was.
That was our anti alt-right song right there. So
Yeah. Oh, I'm happy, distributors. Before you have to go, my next video, in case you didn't catch, is going to be a response to Thulian Perspective. If you've heard of him, he made a video saying that pre-Christian Europe was a paradise and Christians ruined everything. And I think at the end, I can just say flatly that even if everything he was saying in that video was true, the fact is Christians helped end infanticide. So,
if anyone wants to take on the alt-right pagans, Red Eyes Radio has a ridiculous video about how the Catholic Church raped the pure Viking culture in the 8th century.
Someone asked, when is
I didn't have time for it, but it would be ripe for refutation.
Oh, someone in the chat asked, when is the next stream? And the next stream is on the Distributist channel on Thursday night.
Maybe they were asking about your next
And
stream.
my next stream, I'm not entirely sure because I'm not sure what all my family's going to be doing around Christmas and New Year's. So I can't set the date right now because a lot of other things in my life are more important than having a regular live stream. So if you watch my videos, my next video should have a slide at the end saying when the next live stream is.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
So I think is that it, or does anybody else have any announcements they need to say?
Oh, I think I might be on Missing the Marks channel. We decided, or he might be on mine. We discussed interest in having our own live stream together.
Well, that's cool. I really love Missing the Mark. He just hasn't talked to me though, so I've wanted to get him on this live stream, but he just hasn't responded. So I don't know.
I don't think he does group live streams very much. Although it shouldn't be hard to get an interview.
Oh yeah, that's what we're thinking of doing.
Oh, okay.
One-on-one.
I love Missing the Mark's videos. They're great, especially his
They're really
pop
good.
culture ones. I really like those. And his the dishonesty of atheism as a lack of belief, which I'm probably going to have to make my own one of those, but it'll be very similar to his.
Him calling out, well, I think that the only issue I might have is, the distinction of him fundamentalist Protestants, because there's a distinction. I probably wouldn't be considered a fundamentalist Protestant. There's this difference between that and an normal evangelical.
Yeah, well, we don't want to get into a bunch of details now.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to say something.
But thank you for the stream, Todd Lewis.
What?
There
Okay.
are two of them.
Oh, for a second there, I thought Todd Lewis had just joined. That would be amazing.
that was loading. Okay, I think I need to let this go, and hopefully we can make maybe my doing a guitar cover at the end of a stream a more regular thing, and maybe do that every evil, oppressive Christian theocratic
I'll be to the back of
sounds good.
conspiracy live stream. Just do that at the end. So until next time, you all have your assignments. We will stamp out atheism by force and convert everyone by the sword, because we're the evil, oppressive, theocratic conspiracy.
Christian.
Until next time.
What's our quota for Merry Christmases this week?
Oh, yes. Merry Christmas, that as well.
Merry Christmas, you filthy animal.
Exactly.
Oh,
And a Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, y'all.